Hi, Chris. Welcome to Law Firm Accelerator. So glad to have you here.
Hi, Victoria. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Chris, let's get started. Please tell me a little bit about yourself, your law firm, what kind of law you practice, and why did you decide to get into it?
My name's Chris Doran. I'm the owner and lead attorney at Doran Justice. I started the law firm with my wife back in December of 2019. So we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary with the firm. The timing just kind of worked out where we, my wife had a different job. She used to be a recruiter for big accounting firms, and she was looking for a change. And I was partners at an old law firm, and I knew that eventually I wanted to do my own thing, to have the autonomy to take the cases I want, help the people I wanted, to set the prices that I wanted. So the timing just kind of worked out, and we found office space and we pulled the trigger and we went and we got our start up the law firm. We didn't know that a few months later the whole world was going to shut down from COVID, so that was a big surprise to us back in December of 2019. It all worked out.
Surprise! Yeah, that was an interesting time. So you started not even 5 years ago, and it sounds like you've grown pretty well. Now, where do you attribute that growth to?
Hard work and investment in clients. I've known that I wanted to be a lawyer since eighth grade, and I didn't specifically know what type, but then when I went into my undergraduate degree at ASU, that's kind of when I really knew that I wanted to do criminal law. So I've had a passion for doing criminal defense work for a very long time, and just making sure that I carry that passion every day with me when I'm speaking in court, when I'm writing motions, when I'm talking with clients. I feel like that's been what's helped me to have so much success. When people talk about the number one thing with me, there's a lot of things that they mention in terms of trial skills and public speaking and my kindness and stuff, but I think more than anything people talk about my passion for this type of work.
Speaking of passion, you are very passionate about this topic and you do a ridiculous number of pro bono hours. Can you tell me a little bit more about the kind of pro bono work you do, why you do it, who you're working with?
Yeah. I've wanted to help people. I guess it's just been a part of my nature since I've been little. Whether it was, just caring about people and being taught that from growing up, but doing stuff with my church when I was younger, doing extracurricular stuff or involvement with schools, being introduced that way as more than just like something that we did. It was something that I really enjoyed to do. So in college, I started a nonprofit organization as a branch of an umbrella organization called New Global Citizens. And we opened up the first chapter. Me and one of my fellow classmates, we started the first collegiate chapter because normally just branched out to high schools. So we started the first collegiate chapter at Arizona State University. We would partner with third world countries, figure out what kind of goals or needs they needed, whether it was women's rights or poverty, hunger, and we would educate our communities about the problems that they were having. We would fundraise to raise money for them, and then we would just advocate and try and help them to meet whatever Millennium Development Goal it was at the time. So that carried through a lot in college. And then once I went off to law school at Arizona State University, I continued to be involved. I've always had a particular interest for helping the homeless. So I became a project manager with the Homeless Legal Assistance Project, a shelter director there. We would go once a month and provide free legal advice to unhoused individuals and meet with attorneys and do that too. And so that's where I truly felt like this is what being a lawyer is kind of about, helping those people that really need a voice when they need it the most. So I got to meet all sorts of people at the shelters, and then I became the pro bono board president at ASU Law. Most of my volunteer hours, they came from undergraduate mock trial. I started coaching ASU's undergraduate mock trial team as soon as I became a law student. I've been the head coach over at ASU's Sun Devil mock trial for 13 years now. But all throughout law school, I would coach undergraduate students on how to give closing arguments, teach them the rules of evidence, opening statements, how to argue in a courtroom, trial advocacy in a courtroom, trial procedure. And we competed against different colleges from around the nation. But practice was extensive. It's every like Wednesday night, every Saturday during the daytime. We travel to out of state tournaments, multiple weekends throughout the year. So it was a big time commitment, but that's where a lot of my pro bono hours came from. And then to this day, I just continue to try and do that. I always told myself a goal that I made was I was going to make sure that I had at least one pro bono client, always make sure that I had one pro bono client, one active case where it was pro bono. And I've held true to that for the last 8.5, almost 9 years now, where it's usually more than one, at least one at a time, and try and do that because I think that's what it's about. We're all given talents and skills that other people don't necessarily have. So if we can provide those talents and skills and that expertise to people, it can just make our world better.
So I wasn't even going to ask this, but can you tell me a little bit about your favorite pro bono client, maybe the person for whom I know there's probably a lot of people for whose lives you've changed and you can't use any names, but I'm just really curious. Do you have one that's like really touched your heart?
Yeah. I met this individual at a homeless shelter when I was an attorney giving free legal advice one of the months that I was giving there. And he was such a normal person that had just run into barrier after barrier and fallen down on bad luck and bad times. But he was so like put together in the sense of he was articulate, he knew what he was doing, he had a good heart, and he was sitting there just telling me about some of his legal issues that he had. And I was like, this is so new, like this is so easy. It's something that would take me not a whole lot of effort that I can help this guy with. He has so much going on, and it was just mounting on top of him, creating all of this stress and piling on. And it's the type of thing where regular people that aren't lawyers may not know how to like fix the problem, and it can just keep making it worse and worse and worse. And it was something that I just saw that I could fix very easily. So I remember in that moment that after hearing his story and understanding what it was, because a lot of the people that you meet with, right, they in the homeless shelters, they may just be behind on child support, or they want to sue the government because of the way that the police treated them or something like that. And a lot of those issues are things that are beyond our control and things that we can't help too much with once you start to really get into the facts. But this was something that I could really help with. So after I looked up what he was saying and everything was checking out, I remember just sitting there and I was like, I'm going to take your case and I'm going to do it for free. I'm going to do it pro bono. And I remember he just started just crying. He was overwhelmed with gratitude instantly. And, we took on his case. We fixed all of that issue for him. He became kind of like a lifelong friend where he just continued to show up at the law firm to just show us how he was doing. And he got clean and sober. He got good jobs. He got out of the homeless shelter and got an apartment. He got reunited with some of his family members. He beat his addiction. He would just come. He was so grateful. He would come to the law firm and then just be like, hey, let me like take out that trash for you and stuff. And we're like, stop. But you don't need to do that. But he just wanted to do anything he could to give back. And over the years, we just, it was so amazing to see where his life went from that day in the shelter to where it ultimately got to. And it just always sticks with me because one, he was so grateful, and two, it could have been such a different story. The way that he was able to be successful is we just fixed such a simple problem for him.
I have goosebumps. It's funny because as a professional, you have the resources that other people don't have. And sometimes all you have to do is just a small thing here or there, and you can fix an entire situation. I don't have stories like yours, but I have helped people when I'm like, I can just do a couple of small things and they can fix it. And, it does stick with you. This certainly is taking it extra level, and that's really great story, and I appreciate you sharing that, and very heartwarming. Okay, so let's get back to the podcast. Okay, so you do a lot of pro bono work. You're clearly a very good person, and you're also running a successful firm. And one of the things that everybody I meet has trouble with is balancing their work life, and it's balancing your work, and life. How do you do it? What are your tips? How do you take care of everything without losing yourself in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that time is the hardest thing to come by when you're a lawyer. I think that if you ask my staff or any of my students or even my wife this question, they'd probably say, I don't know how he does it, because there's a lot that goes into it. I think that my personality plays a big role into it. I am a very driven, competitive person who always has to be doing something. I'm the type that can't sit still. Seconds of free time that I will be occupying myself with free time. So that translates to the work environment in terms of like, oh, I could always be reaching out to somebody to see if they'll do a review for me, or I could always be responding to an email, or I can, be listening to body camera footage or working on a case while I'm driving in a car or something like that. So I think that a lot of it has to do with personality, but also something that kind of learned at the beginning of law school, and maybe I knew it before then, but I think it resonated a lot in law school, was that you have to start off law school with doing all the things that you want to do. So I started off by coaching mock trial from the beginning. I started off by getting involved in extracurriculars, joining different organizations. And that's kind of law school, and people tell you, like, don't overcommit. Like, you don't want to do that. You need to just focus on your first core classes. It's a new environment. You're taking a lot of topics that are going to be on the bar exam. You need to just focus on that. And a lot of the people that I saw that would do that and kind of built their schedule were, hey, just my first year, I'm just going to focus on my classes and my schoolwork. Well, what I commonly saw from them in their second and third year is they felt like that was all the time that they had. Like they didn't have extra free time. But I did the opposite, where I packed my schedule where with law school classes and coaching for mock trial and having a personal life outside of it, and I built it all in. And then I knew that I had that time. I knew that I was able to do that. And it allowed me to just make sure that you ensure that you have that time kind of going forward. So I do the same thing with the law practice of everything is important. It's really important to make sure that your team is happy, that your employees are happy. It's important to make sure that your clients are being taken care of. It's important that I spend time with my wife and my son. It's important that I, do the volunteer work. So all of it's important, and we find time for the things that are important in our lives.
Find time for the things that are important in our life. It's true. It's very true. And I do think that the more you do, the more time you have, which is, and then you also probably have really great staff that are, helpful. I certainly have a lot of jobs, and every time people ask me, how do you do it all? I'm like, well, I don't. I have really terrific staff who take care of me.
I couldn't do it without my wife and my staff.
Yeah, did you eat today? Somebody has to ask you that, right?
Every day my paralegal asks me that, or my wife asks me that.
That's funny. So this is a podcast about marketing, and, what I'd love to know is what kind of marketing experiences have you had? And we have a lot of people who are listening, a lot of people I know who haven't had the best of experiences. So I always ask, what is the best marketing experience marketing experience you have, and the tip you can give? And also, what is the worst? So let's start with the best. Let's be positive. Tell me about your best marketing experience and your tips for how other people could use it.
Yeah. So where we're successful in marketing comes from a few different things. Number one, my wife, the director of operations at our firm, and our social media intern, they're in charge of Instagram and Facebook and all social media. I think that a lot of people do really great work out there, but if people don't know what you're doing and don't know about the great work, then it goes unnoticed, and it's hard for people to recognize you. I think that's hard for a lot of people. They don't want to brag about themselves and talk about themselves, and so it's important to have someone that can help to just share results, to not even just results, but stories, just to share what's going on. Some of our most successful posts have to do with what our staff and interns did over the summer, where we'll post pictures of them, and one's in Italy and one's, doing something cool or whatever. And those are the ones that get the most engagement, not because they're about law or because we got some great dismissal result or some big settlement, just because people like to see the human aspect of corporations and the human aspect of businesses. So I think that's number one. Number two, I use a hashtag anytime I post about my cases or about the justice system called Chris Cases. I don't know why I started that or why I did. It's just the alliteration, I guess, between my name and the cases were there. But I started that, and I found that many people throughout all the walks of life where I've met people, from when I worked at Fry's, from when I went to elementary school, from when I was at ASU, wherever I met people, that they really enjoy, lawyers and non-lawyers, hearing about our justice system. I think it's such an unfamiliar place for a lot of people, and they get to see it sensationalized on shows, all the shows that we watch all the time and the dramas that we love. But to really know what goes on in our judicial system, I think a lot of people don't know. And so it started with just me kind of educating people, like, hey, this is what a settlement conference is. This is what happens at trial. Here's certain charges that are not eligible for a jury trial. And people were just kind of wowed and amazed by learning about it. And so I think that my posts about risk cases have really helped to educate people a lot, to where when they think, okay, lawyer, then they refer me people and they think to me and they can see how much passion I have and the knowledge that I have about it. And then the last thing is just, when you're passionate about your cases and you try really hard, I get good results. I mean, I win cases, I get dismissals, I get favorable plea offers, and then people talk about that. That's been the most successful form of advertising I could ever have, is that my clients leave me really great reviews on Google and on the platforms, and then they talk about me, whether they're in custody or out of custody. I get referrals from clients, from colleagues, from friends, from everyone, and word of mouth is the biggest marketing thing that I can do. And all that has to do with is just working hard, never stopping, and treating people the right way, because then people will talk about you.
So, a few interesting things here. What social media platform do you post mostly on? Is it Instagram or Facebook?
Those would be the top two. Yeah, we are on other platforms. I haven't made the jump over to TikTok yet and can find myself doing videos. But
Yeah, a
yeah,
little
but
dance.
no, yeah, so I haven't done that. It's really just Facebook and Instagram are the main ones.
So, in that way, you are very unique, and I'll tell you why. Most people, when they look for a criminal lawyer, they are looking for an urgent help. So, most people either ask a referral, which a lot of people are also embarrassed to ask other friends, or
Right.
most people, criminal lawyer, will go on Google and type in criminal lawyer near me. It is very unusual for somebody to be so prominent on Instagram or Facebook that their brand is so well recognized that people will actually come to them. So you are doing something very unique, and you're doing something obviously very right there. But I would say for most criminal lawyers, unless you're willing to dedicate a lot of time to it, there are better ways to get those faster conversions than social media. However, if you're really passionate about it and you love to educate people, which you clearly do, that is a good thing, but you have to genuinely enjoy it. So I do have sometimes some of my criminal lawyers, they get plenty of people from Google and they're like, well, can we expand to Facebook? And usually my response is no. And because unless you're posting very unique, very original, great content, you're not going to take off on those. And even if you do, getting to be in the right place at the right time when somebody is looking for a lawyer is hard. You have to have amazing brand recognition. So you're doing something very, very good there. But I think that might be unique, to you and maybe some other folks who are very socially media savvy.
No, yeah, I appreciate that.
So that is amazing. I'm so glad it's working for you. Oh, and the other great tip that you gave as well is the fact that you have somebody from your office doing it. Now, social media is hard to do very well because it's so personal. So a person has to understand you and, your essence, so to speak, in order to do it really well. Now, there are companies that do it out there, but it's very hard to understand the essence of somebody if you don't work with them side by side, right? So having somebody in the office is a great solution if you can manage it and if you enjoy it. So that's just a little tip for the listeners. But tell me about not so happy marketing ideas that you've had, maybe some things that didn't work out as you planned. And why not?
Yeah. Yeah, so like many lawyers, right, I've tried strategies that you're taught and things that are supposed to work. And maybe it's just a way of how I've always been. I feel like whenever I take the path that is traveled by everyone, it doesn't work out. So I find my own like crisp path. And when I do that, then it works out for me in ways that it doesn't for others. But I've tried the normal stuff where people are like, this is what you got to do. You got to, build the SEO. You need to can do these paid leads. You can use this stuff that will attract more people that way. You can pay Google. You can pay for advertisements, things like that. And it works for a lot of firms. It works, and the quantity and the attraction that it comes into, it does. We've paid for leads before where, you give them X amount of money and they promise to send you X many leads a month have honestly been like the ones that have worked out the worst for me. Thankfully, I feel like I've always broken even or about broken even on those types of arrangements when I've done them, but it's a lot of work, and the leads typically, from what I've found, are not as great as what they're portrayed to be. So for example, if we're paying for like criminal leads somewhere and they send it to us, it will send you in the form of like a text or text or an email where you get a brief description about the case, the person's phone number, their email address. You call them. A lot of the times they don't answer. They don't call you back. The follow-up is horrible. Or you do talk to them and you get a consultation set. And in fact, they weren't even really looking for a lawyer. So how some place found them to connect them with me, I don't know. But they weren't really looking. They don't have the money to afford one. Or the third category that's like the most common is that you call them and their case is already resolved. Maybe it resolved 10 years ago, and they're looking to see if the conviction can be overturned, or they want to sue the government for something that happened to them, or they're just not really criminal defense type leads, but there's something about the way that they phrased it where it gets confused in the algorithm to think that it is. So we've had some cases that have signed from leads, don't get me wrong. Like I said, a lot of them they've broken even or just about, but I think that it's so much. I found my staff wasting so much time with like calling these people and following up, and we were good about it too. We would even, you get a text at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night or something and instantly call them or instantly email them, and you just get a lack of response or lack of follow-up. So I'm sure there are great lead providers out there. The ones that I've experienced haven't worked out for us in a way that is better than what we already have going.
So I don't know all the lead providers out there, so I'll put that out there. But in my experience, in general, those leads tend to not be great. And there's a couple of reasons why. A lot of times, one lead will go out to multiple people. A lot of times, maybe 20 people could get one lead. They are getting paid per lead, so it's not necessarily in their best interest to pre-screen the lead as much as possible. The other issue, and this is a big one, is that people who click on paid advertisement, and that's usually where leads come from, are generally not as good of a client as people who click on an organic search. And the reason why is because people who click on an organic search tend to be better educated. They tend to do a little more research rather than clicking on the first thing they see on the page. So they scroll down a little bit, they read through a little bit, they might even visit your website, and then they call. And that gives you a very different kind of client, somebody who is not as impulsive. I also found them to be generally better paying clients, like in terms of they can afford more. So that's something to keep in mind. For when I work with lawyers, my first go-to is always to do SEO, because those are going to be the best bang for the buck. Those are going to be the leads that are going to cost you the least in the long run and then be the best clients. And then after that, after we max out with that, if you come to me, you're like, I want to do more now. I can't rank you more than number one in the city. I can't do that. Then we go to ads. Have you had any experience with doing SEO? And what has your experience been like?
Yeah, I think that has been one of the more successful things to do. It's something that you have a lot of control over, whether you have someone do it for you or whether you do it yourself. But blogging, right? So we have blogs on our website, and I will write about topics similar to how I would post about topics educating people, but this is an area where I can write more, have it be more detailed, and cite statutes and have links on there that all pop up. And that's been successful. I actually had, and I think that's one of the most successful ways for people to do it, is to blog, because then you're having the word count, you're having those targeted words, you're creating unique topics and unique substance for people to look for. One of our most popular blogs was written by an intern of mine. She's a lawyer now, but she had created this blog and she wrote it on the difference between prison and jail. A lot of times you're watching a TV show and they will mess up the terminology. It's almost like if you're watching a medical show and you're like, oh, that's not the right word for that operation or something. Same thing with a lawyer, where people will always say jail on shows, and it's like they think of murder. They're going to prison. They're not going to the county jail right now. So she just did a very simple article on the difference between prison and jail, and also some of the realistic differences about the type of food you get in one place or the other, the type of outside exposure or the other. And that's been our biggest one. People click on that article all of the time. It always pops up on Google. So I think that
Yeah.
if people can write blogs and they have the time to do that, but it all comes back to time, right? Where you either have to have someone who's not a part of your firm do it, or you have someone, or you do it, and you have to have the time to be able to do that. But if you can do that, I agree with you. I think that's one of the best ways that people can market.
Excellent point. So, yeah, so there's two types of page. Well, there's really three types of pages on the website. There is blogs, which are informative, and they are designed to drive traffic to your website. Maybe not necessarily for people who are ready to convert right this very second, but just to inform people so that your name is in front of them. Then there is money pages, what we call money pages, and that's like, murder lawyer or DUI lawyer or burglary lawyer. And those are things when somebody goes online, they put that in, and that's the page decided to pop up. And then there's like support pages about us, etc. If you are able to write your own stuff online, that's huge. That's huge for anybody. And the reason why is because you were able to provide unique content, right? So for instance, in my agency, we create a ton of content for our lawyers. We're not lawyers. We're going to create proper content. We're going to create correct content, but we're not going to create unique original content. We're not going to be citing case laws. However, if you have a lawyer who can write, and if you're able to do a few more things to that blog, so for instance, if you make a post on Twitter about it, if you make a post on Facebook about it, if you make a post on Instagram about it, if you can get a press release for it, it's a little more advanced, that stuff that we do. And then you create all these backlinks. A backlink is like a vote of confidence, and you promote it. That's going to raise your website in the eyes of Google. And when it does that, it's going to drive traffic to all of your pages, including your murder and your burglary and your felony charges pages. So I have a client in Chicago who came to me, and he was already very, very successful. Loves to write, writes all of his own stuff nonstop. He posts all the time. Russell D. Knight in Chicago. He's the #1 divorce lawyer right now in Chicago, and he's grown his firm immensely. And what he does was, he's like, don't mess with my text. I'm like, I will not touch your text. But what we do is we take his blog posts and we create all that kind of backlinks to them, and we put them on social media, and we create all kinds of, and he's just blown up. Like, he's gone from, I think, 1 or 2 lawyers to like 5 to 8 at this point. And like every month he emails me, he's like, we have a new person. So it is such a huge resource if you're able to write. Not a lot of people like it, but if you like it, God bless you. And it makes it so much easier for us to have unique and original content. So great tip. Yeah, if you have that kind of time. Okay, I think we got a lot. I got a lot finished here. Let me ask you this: where are you looking to go with your law firm? What is next for you guys?
So right now we have one of my interns that's been working with us for a couple of years. That she's taking the second day of the bar exam right now. So good luck to Maddie. And then she's supposed to start with us. Yeah, she's going to start with us in October after she gets her bar results. So be another lawyer at the firm. I just want to continue doing what we're doing. I think that we change a lot of people's lives, that we help a lot of people, and continuing to do that on a larger scale is something that I look forward to. Someday when I'm going to be ready to be done practicing criminal law, and what happens after that, whether I go and do something else with my career, I don't know. But right now I love being in the courtroom. I love helping people that need to be helped. I've always indicated that true success can only be accomplished by succeeding at something that you're passionate about, and I'm passionate about this, and that's how I've been able to be successful with it.
Yeah, in the end you have to love what you do, otherwise it's just a job, and who wants that?
That's right.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a wonderful interview. I really appreciate it. Stick around.
Thank you so much.